So up until this morning, the storybook romance and 25-year marriage of Will and Jada Pinkett Smith has survived challenges up until this morning. Like, you know, for instance, Jada's calling her an entanglement with their son's friend.
What was your hardest time in our marriage?
I think the turning point in our relationship for me happened when I turned 40. Mm-hmm. That's when I had a midlife crisis.
Yeah, your 40th birthday was my low point.
I think, just like we were talking about, I think there's so many of us who, you know, hold so much, you know, specifically women, and feeling like we're going to be criticized, we're going to be
can't say anything.
judged, you can't say anything.
Yeah.
I retire. I retire from trying to make you happy. I need you to go make yourself happy and just prove to me that it's even possible.
Jada Pinkett Smith has been called a lot of things over the years, but in 2024, one word kept coming up over and over again in comment sections, in barbershops, on Twitter timelines, and in group chats across the country. Hated, not disliked, not criticized, genuinely, deeply hated by millions of people who once rooted for her. And that's a wild place to end up when you started as one of the most beloved women in Hollywood. She was sharp, confident, beautiful, and married to arguably the most charming man on the planet. She had the career, the platform, the legacy, and the family that people dreamed about. So how does someone go from that to becoming the face of public contempt? That's the question nobody seems to want to sit with long enough to actually answer. Because the honest answer is complicated. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't one interview or one headline or one moment that flipped public opinion against her. It was a slow build, a drip, drip, drip of revelations, contradictions, and choices that left people feeling like they had been watching a performance for 20 years. And once that curtain came down, the backlash hit like a freight train.
Now, Jada has just dropped a major plot twist. Take a look.
From the year 2016, which is 7 years ago now,
Yes.
y'all have been...
Story of how Jada Pinkett Smith became the most polarizing celebrity in America. Not just in hip-hop circles, not just in Hollywood, but everywhere. Her name alone is enough to start an argument at a dinner table.
The day after her 37th birthday, I hired a team to orchestrate her 40th birthday. Her 40th birthday was going to be my thing.
It was going to be a splash.
It was going to be a splash. Get her out of this midlife crisis, and it was going to be my deepest, most beautiful proclamation of love, and we did it. And then when we got back to the room, it was me, you, and Mommy, and we were talking about the next day, and there were things planned for the next day, and she said, I'm not sure I want to do anything the next day. And I was like, well, I'll cancel tomorrow. She was like, it's my birthday, right? And she's told me that the party was the most ridiculous display of my ego.
Ooh. People who never cared about celebrity gossip a day in their life suddenly had strong opinions about Jada. That's how deep this thing goes. We're going to trace exactly how it happened. The patterns, the public moments, the revelations that changed everything, and the one twist in this story that almost nobody saw coming. Stay locked in. Because this is about way more than just celebrity drama. This is about public image, loyalty, and what happens when the truth finally catches up to the story you've been selling the world.
I really felt like we could be over. You know?
We were over. I got into a different kind of entanglement with August. You giving permission.
This is your red table, and you brought yourself to the red table. I think you need to say clearly what happened.
As far as what?
You and I decided we were going to take our space, and what happened.
To really understand where the hatred comes from, you have to go back to the moment that broke the internet and honestly broke a lot of people's hearts at the same time. July 2020. The world is already on edge. COVID has everything shut down. People are stressed, isolated, and glued to their screens. And right in the middle of all that chaos, Jada Pinkett Smith sits down on her own show, Red Table Talk, and drops a bombshell that nobody was ready for. She admitted, on camera, with Will sitting right next to her, that she had been in a romantic relationship with singer August Alsina while she and Will were together. She called it an entanglement, a word that immediately became one of the most mocked and dissected terms in celebrity culture history.
So what happened, Jada?
Okay, so let's start with about 4 years ago. Started a friendship with August. We actually became really I think I want to get clear about and clean up one of the things that was kind of swirling in the press about you giving permission, which is, the only person that can give permission in that particular circumstance is myself.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
People weren't just shocked in moment. It wasn't a brave confession that earned sympathy. For most people watching, it felt like something else entirely. What struck a lot of viewers was how the entire Red Table Talk conversation seemed carefully constructed to center Jada's healing while leaving Will exposed and visibly wounded. She controlled the narrative, the setting, the framing, and even the emotional tone of the conversation, while Will sat there absorbing it all in real time. That's the thing about emotional manipulation at a high level. It rarely looks like abuse from the outside. It looks like openness. It looks like honesty. But the person on the receiving end is left with nowhere to go and no way to defend themselves without looking like the problem.
So me and Jada was reflecting about love. And I asked her, I said, what did she think was, one of the biggest revelations that she had about love? She said that you cannot make a person happy. And I thought that was a real deep idea. You can make a person smile, you can make a person feel good, you can make a person laugh, but whether or not a person is happy is deeply and totally and utterly out of your control.
And that pattern, that specific dynamic, was something people had actually been watching for years without fully naming it. Because if you went back and watched the early interviews, the old talk show appearances, the behind-the-scenes footage from the early 2000s, a picture starts to form that's hard to unsee once you see it. Will Smith spent the better part of 2 decades building his public identity around being a devoted husband and family man. He talked about Jada in interviews with a kind of reverence that most people reserve for sacred things. He defended her publicly, praised her constantly, and made their marriage a centerpiece of his entire personal brand. And the whole time, he genuinely seemed to believe he was protecting something real. But here's where it gets painful. While Will was out there being the hype man for their relationship, Jada was quietly telling a very different story to anyone who would listen. She made comments on Red Table Talk that left audiences genuinely uncomfortable. She openly questioned whether monogamy was natural. She discussed her own emotional needs in ways that positioned Will as someone who consistently fell short, without ever quite saying it directly. That's the thing. It was never direct. It was always framed as self-reflection, as growth, as her personal journey. But the target of every story was the same man. And people started to feel a certain way about that, especially men. Especially Black men who had grown up watching Will Smith as a symbol of excellence, of charisma, of the kind of success you could achieve without losing who you are. Seeing him reduced, bit by bit, in the very relationship he was most proud of hit different for a lot of people.
And after we cracked the hell up, we started talking about, we came into this false romantic concept that somehow when we got married that we would become one. And what we realized is that we were 2 completely separate people on 2 completely separate individual journeys, and that we were choosing to walk our separate journeys together. But her happiness was her responsibility, and my happiness was my responsibility.
They were not together, but kind of pretended they were together. So I had trouble articulating exactly why that was. So now that you've had more time, why was that?
We really needed time to get solidified because at the end of the day, Will and I love each other. You know, we had to really figure out what we wanted before we went into the world to say what was going on, because we were in such, we were just kind of in this very fragile place. And so now we're just super solid
Yeah.
And so now I can actually talk about what the journey has been.
Why do I know so much about these people's marriage? I kind of feel, I mean, like, literally, I kind of feel like I know more about their marriage than I know about my own damn marriage. I don't need to know all of this. I just, you know what? I just want to watch reruns of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Bad Boys, Bad Boys, Bad Boys. What you gonna do? Just leave this out of my head. I don't need to know all of
by
this.
this particular.
The criticism of Jada wasn't coming from nowhere. It was coming from years of watching someone use the language of empowerment to quietly dismantle another person's dignity. And the more she leaned into her platform, the more visible that pattern became. The entanglement was just the moment the dam finally broke. And then came the book. In October 2023, Jada Pinkett Smith announced the release of her memoir, Worthy, and with it came a press tour that somehow managed to make everything worse. She revealed that she and Will had actually been living separately since 2016, a full 7 years before anyone in the public had any idea. 7 years of red carpets together, 7 years of joint interviews, 7 years of presenting a unified front to the world, and none of it was real. Let that sink in for a second.
Jada Pinkett Smith reacts to accusation of emasculating and embarrassing husband Will. Jada Pinkett Smith says Ana Navarro should read her Worthy memoir before alleging she dogged out husband Will Smith for clickbait. That Jada just needs one person to read this memoir. She's just trying to get at least one person to buy her book. No one has.
While Will was defending her honor at the Oscars in March 2022, the moment that cost him his reputation, his legacy, and a significant chunk of public goodwill, they weren't even together in the way the world thought they were. He walked up on that stage and threw everything away for a woman who, by her own admission, had emotionally checked out of the marriage years before that night.
That was a horrific night. That was a horrific night.
To you?
For me, yeah. I made
all the real ones who understood, I'm gonna stand up for my wife, whether I'm right or wrong in any place. So I understood that. I don't care what you say, nobody can make me think that anything you did was wrong.
And I get home, and my nephew, 9 years old, his name's Dom, and he's holding the Oscar. And he goes, "Why you hit that man, Uncle Will?" And I was like, oh, I'm gonna be crying. Somebody got tissue? And it was, oh, I got one. And it was like, see, I knew y'all was gonna have me, right?
All good.
You can't explain it to him. He stayed up late.
Right, waited for you.
Waited for Uncle Will. And it was like, you know, I can do all the justifications forever.
Right. He won't understand it.
He can't, you know.
That revelation reframed everything. Every interview Will gave about their love. Every time he got emotional talking about their bond. Every sacrifice he made publicly to protect her image. People looked back at all of it and felt something close to grief on his behalf.
At all. I still don't. They hadn't been together for 7 years at that point, right? Yep. Or whatever, 5, 6, 7 years. And then she's shocked because he's like, don't talk about my wife that way. And she's like,
well, because she was, he invited her because he thought this was his crowning moment in Hollywood, and he wanted her there, even though they weren't together.
Yeah, she was a part of his rise.
Yeah, so and then for him to say, my wife, I think that surprised her, and then it was a ripple effect.
But none of that matters when it triggers violence. I mean, at the end of the day, like Will hit Chris. That's
and I think she sort of felt like she was the heavy. If you watch Will's acceptance speech, he says, as he's crying, he says the things we do for love, as if that's what he's doing.
That's why
he
protecting her. It kind of puts it on her.
Yeah, it kind of.
I'm being called on in my life to love people and to protect people and to be a river to my people. And I know to do what we do, you got to be able to take abuse. You got to be able to have people talk crazy about you. In this business, you got to be able to have people disrespecting you. And you got to smile and you got to pretend like that's okay. I want to be a vessel for love. I want to be an ambassador of that kind of love and care and concern.
She demeaned him. And if they were apart, what was the point? And then if he defends her honor by doing that, and then she says in this interview, "Oh, I thought it was a sketch," and hangs him out to dry. Who's winning here?
And her face did not look like she thought it was a comedy sketch. If she thought it was a comedy sketch, she was a role in it. She was playing into it.
All right, we gotta go.
We'll do that. Did that look like a comedy sketch face to you?
And Jada's timing with the book announcement raised eyebrows from every direction. She dropped these revelations right as Will was at the lowest point of his public life, still rebuilding after the Oscars incident, still largely absent from the spotlight. Some people called it tone-deaf, others called it calculated. Either way, the reaction from the public was swift and it was brutal. Comment sections filled up overnight. Podcasts ran overtime episodes. Former fans who had defended her through the entanglement era finally said enough. The narrative that she had worked so hard to control for so long was slipping completely out of her hands. But here's the part of this story that almost nobody talks about. The part that gets buried under all the drama and the hot takes and the viral moments is that Jada Pinkett Smith didn't just damage her own reputation through all of this. She fundamentally changed how the world sees Will Smith, and not in a way that can be easily undone. At some point between the entanglement revelation and the Oscars incident, something inside Will visibly shifted. People close to him described a man who had been holding himself together through sheer willpower for years, and by 2022, that willpower had run completely dry. The version of Will Smith who walked onto that Oscars stage didn't look like a man acting out of confidence. He looked like a man who had been carrying something unbearable for a very long time and finally cracked under the weight of it. And the world watched it happen in real time. The slap itself became one of the most replayed moments in award show history, and with it came a level of public humiliation that even Will's harshest critics admitted was painful to watch. He went from receiving a standing ovation for his performance in King Richard to being escorted out of the Academy permanently, all within the span of a single evening. The image of him crying in his seat shortly after the incident, while the cameras kept rolling and the world kept watching, is one of those moments that doesn't leave you. And yet, even after all of that, Jada continued her press tour. She kept giving interviews. She kept reframing the narrative. She kept centering her own healing, while the man who had spent decades protecting her name was left to face the consequences alone. That's the detail that quietly turned a lot of people from neutral observers into genuine critics. Not the entanglement, not the separation, but the silence when he needed her most, followed by a book deal when he was already down. Some people call that timing. Other people call it something else entirely. So here's where we land with all of this. Jada Pinkett Smith didn't become the most hated celebrity in America because people are bored or because the internet needed a target. She got here through a long series of choices, public moments, and revelations that left millions of people feeling like they had been watching a carefully produced show instead of a real marriage. And when the curtain finally dropped, the reaction was exactly what you'd expect from an audience that feels like it got played. Whether you sympathize with her, despise her, or land somewhere in the middle, the story itself is undeniable. It's messy, it's layered, and it says a lot about fame, image, and the price people pay when the version of themselves they sell to the world stops matching the truth. That's what makes this story stick. It's not just about Jada. It's about all of us watching, and what we do when our heroes turn out to be human. If this video hit different for you, drop a comment below and tell us where you stand. Like the video if you want to see more stories like this one, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.
25 years and counting.
We ride together.
We die together.
Bad marriage for life.
That's terrible.
It's the truth.
It's the truth.